So now that we have our lion, we're going to colour in these sections and then draw the other components. So I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to select the inner and outer ear parts. Just there, so I'll just pick these up and the face. And then making sure that the fill has focus, so the solid square's in front on the toolbox. I'm going to hit the period key to fill all of these with a gradient. Now I've got the default black and white gradient just there from the gradient selector, and I'm going to change that to radial. And I'm actually going to choose different colours for this. You could mix them yourself or choose from the swatches. I'm going to take the latter approach here and just pick those up. So once I've done that, I'm also going to save that gradient so that I can use it later on. If you want to rename it, it's here in the swatches panel. You can just double click it to rename it. Once I've done that, I'm going to get the gradient tool. So I'm going to zoom out just slightly here, tap G to get the gradient tool. I'm going to make the gradient more elliptical just there. Maybe pull that up just a little bit. That way I get some shading effect just there. I'm going to select the inner ears here. Now I could do this via recolor artwork. It's probably easier for me to just go along and just choose different colors from that. So I'm going to just choose maybe a lighter color just there and a darker color, much darker color I think, just on the inside. And then zoom in on those and then just select them individually. So the first one here, get my gradient tool, just pull the gradient out, make it elliptical, spin it around a little bit, pull that in, hold down the command key. That allows me to select the other shape and just pull that around, do that and pull that in. There you are. So just that little bit of shading there. So I've done that. I'm going to select the mane and the forelock and then apply a gradient to these also. Again, period key there just to apply a gradient, and I'll tune this one as well. I think I'll go for this out to a darker colour like that maybe. Excellent, that looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom out and I want to unify these gradients here, so I'm going to get the gradient tool and draw a new gradient like so, and you'll see that it then joins those two together. Maybe draw that again slightly off center and slightly different angle. Perfect. So once that's done, we can then remove the strokes from some of these. So I'm just going to basically shift click this whole bunch here just to select those. Tap X, that swaps the focus to the stroke, slash to remove the stroke, X to return back to the fill. So there you can see that just looks like one continuous thing. So let's zoom in now and we'll do the nose just here. So I'm going to change this to a mesh object. Before I do that, I'm going to get a swatch to give that the color for the nose. I think something nice and dark like that. Object, create gradient mesh, 2 rows, 2 columns to center, and then a highlight value that just basically makes that brighter in the middle if we want. Although, what I could do if I just zoom in just here is get my direct selection tool and click on that middle mesh point and bend that around a little bit more, just give that even more form just there, and even choose a different color for that. So if I wanted a completely different highlight color, then I can do that there. I like that, nice and soft. I'm going to come down now to the mouth. I'm going to get my selection tool. I'm going to click these 2 shapes. I'm going to hit slash to remove their fill, and then shift X to transpose the stroke to the fill. Once I've done that, quickly deselect them and select this mouth part here. I'm going to use the color panel there to quickly dial in a color for the tongue. That will do. And I'm going to select the main mouth part here. I'll use a nice dark grey just there for that. Perfect. Okay, zoom out a little bit. And now to work on the mouth itself. So I'm going to select this shape here and I'm going to dial up the width for that to about 4 points in this case, and choose what I like to think of as the surfboard width profile. Just there, let's change the colour of that. Let's make that a nice dark grey also, maybe a bit darker than that. Good. And select these end points here. Similar deal, but to a lesser extent. Just tune those up a little bit, maybe half of that surfboard profile, and just change their colour as well. Excellent. Now I'm going to tap backslash on my keyboard and draw a stroke going straight up. I'll make that about 4 points, same width as the main mouth there, and I'm going to apply this width profile to it. Excellent. So once that's done, can zoom out just a little bit. If you'd drawn it the other way around, you'd need to flip that, but you could do that just here inside the stroke panel. In fact, if I just do it twice, you can see how that works just with the direction, but that's why I drew upwards. So that's working out okay so far. Let's zoom in, and I'm going to select the eyes just here. So one of the first things I'm going to do is give them a slightly different fill color. I don't want it to be full on white just there. I'm going to use a very light grey, and then X/X just to remove the stroke from those also. Now I'm going to switch to my ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw an ellipse going outwards like that to create my eye shape. I'm going to tap D just to make that the default. There, just give that sort of black stroke around the edge there, and then hit the period key to give that a gradient. Let's dial in something here. So maybe if I go for something out to about that, that's kind of nice. Radial is good. Get my gradient tool here and just bring that in because it's keeping hold of that elliptical shape, and just move that up a bit more towards 2 o'clock just there. Excellent. I'm going to tap L to draw a gradient, hold down Alt and Shift to draw from the center outwards, regular shape just there. Kill off that gradient, Shift X to transpose those things. Draw another ellipse here, hit the period key to give that a gradient fill. This one I'm going to choose from white to white, but on the outer gradient I'm going to drop the opacity down to 0%. Just gives me a nice soft highlight just there, and I could tune that with the gradient tool, or what's probably easier for me at this particular point is to just make that a little bit larger. Perfect. I'm going to select all 3 of those and group them, and I'm actually going to cut that to the clipboard. I'm going to select this shape, then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and tap D twice. That cycles me through the drawing modes. I'm now in Draw Inside mode. I'm going to paste down that eye, and then using my arrow keys, just nudge that into position there like so. And I'm going to go to this shape here. I'm going to do Shift D once, takes me to Draw Normal, twice, Draw Behind, third time, Draw Inside and paste, and then just bring that one down similarly just there, maybe not exactly the same, just close enough. There we are, perfect. And then Shift D just to go back into Draw Normal mode. So let's zoom out and see where we are so far. So now we're going to draw the legs just here. So I'm going to get the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle like so, and I'm actually going to apply my saved gradient to it just there. We'll do something with that in a minute. I'm going to draw another rectangle just here. It's going to be the paw. Just zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. Going to select both of those things like so. Shift M for the shape builder tool, drag across those to unify them. A for the direct selection tool, click on this back point and click on this point here, just round that off a little bit. This one here, I'm actually going to turn that into a curved point. Do you know, that's not a bad shape entirely just on its own, so I think I'll leave that as it is. I'm going to select the main shape, tap G for my gradient here, and actually, do you know what, that's not cutting it. I'm just going to swap those 2 things over. I could have clicked the reverse gradient inside of the gradient tool, but let's draw that out big now. Maybe just make that a little bit bigger and make it a bit more elliptical. And then just send this to the back, Shift Command left bracket, like so. I want to add some claws to this. I'm going to use the Arc tool just here. I've made my own little toolbox, which you can do in Illustrator CC 2015 and 2014.1. So I'm just going to draw those 3 arcs just there. I could have drawn these inside actually, that would have been cool. And I'm going to choose my gradient for those, for the stroke, and then just tune them a little bit. So just bring that out like so, and then make that like that. Perfect. I'm going to cut those. I'm going to select that and Shift D twice to draw inside, paste, and then just bring those down into place like that. Excellent. I'll use that similar technique actually to create the nose for the lion in just a second. Shift D to exit the draw inside mode. That bit's really, really important because otherwise anything else I draw will end up there. So now I select this. It's a clipping mask, so you need to select it by the edge. I'm going to tap O. I'm going to go over to the center line here and Alt click. I'm then going to hold down the Alt key and hit return to create a copy like that. Perfect. I'm going to select both of those. I'm going to copy those and then paste those down in front, Command F, and then just individually bring those in and downwards just a little bit like so. So I've got my 4 legs just there. Let's go and finish off the muzzle of the lion just here. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to create an arc just along here. So let's draw an arc. If this was going the wrong way for you, you can tap F while you're drawing to flip that over and use the arrow keys to change the nature of the curve also. So if I bring that in, that's great stuff. Tap O, Alt click on this point, Alt return to create a copy, and select this half, Command J to join those together. And I might actually just increase the curve of that. So I'll select that point, scale tool, and just bring that out. Nice, perfect. So once I've done that, I'm going to increase the weight of that stroke quite a bit there, and I'm going to change that to this profile. I'm going to go to my gradient selector here, and what I want to do, if I just tap X to bring the stroke to the front, I'm going to choose my dark color here. I'm going to Alt drag a copy of that to the middle. I'm going to remove this one on the side and change the far one here to an opacity of 0, and then Alt drag a copy of that to that side. So now I've got something that goes from transparent to this darker color, and then choose this across stroke option there. Change that back to linear, and then you can see I get this nice soft edge there. And I could change the blend there, just change the blend midpoint so that blends nicely outwards. Perfect. So zoom in a bit so you can see a little bit more clearly. Now for the tail. So for the tail, again, I'm going to use the arc tool just here. I'm going to draw that towards the back end of the lion like so. I'm going to increase the weight of the stroke, make it nice and heavy. It's got a gradient on it, so that's just fine. Just from there, I change the profile. This time I'm going to use this profile. Gone the wrong way, so I'll just flip that over as I mentioned earlier on. Back to my gradients, choose my original saved gradient just there. I'm not worried about it being radial. Just turn it to linear, and in fact that works perfectly like that. Send that to the back, and I zoom in just a little bit here, just the finishing touches now. Get my pen tool, make a click and make a nice little shape for the tuft or tassel at the back end there. Perfect. And do that, Shift X to swap that over. In fact, I think that looks pretty good as it is. I might just change it to radial, tap X to go to the fill. There we are. One final thing I'm going to do there is just click on that and just give that a bit of a rounding. There we are. Excellent. And there we are. That's our lion completed. If I just hide the guides from here and zoom in a bit. And that's our lion drawing tutorial complete, apart from me just getting rid of that stroke. There you go, done. Fantastic. I hope you've enjoyed it, and happy drawing.